Hello, hello, hello. This is Talking Manchester United, a United Stand podcast with myself, Paul Gardner. And joining me, as always, is Ash Burns. Ash, how are you, my friend?
Hey, I'm alive. Yeah, I'm not too bad. Not the best weekend of football, but yeah, we'll have them. What about yourself?
Well, we'll get into that shortly, I'm sure. I'm not too bad. I think I've had the fortune of actually missing the game. I think I caught about 5 minutes of it. Just I was able to catch 5 minutes of it. I've been so busy working two jobs, pretty much 12-hour days. I just hadn't had a chance to even watch the game back today or even Sunday night. But before we go too far into that, we do have another guest with us this week in the form of Matthew McFadden. Matthew, how are you, my friend?
I'm not bad actually, considering the last game, but shit happens.
It does. It does. We could all be better. To be fair, we could all be better.
Definitely,
yeah. For the benefit of the listeners, we will talk briefly about the Brighton game. Obviously, I won't be saying too much because I haven't seen it. I'm sure Ash and Matthew have got plenty that they want to say. Then we'll take your suggestions from Twitter. I'm pretty sure we've got a few replies again today. Thanks to Ash for putting that tweet out because, again, I just completely forgot about it. I've been all over the place. So well done, Ash, for that.
Well, good.
And then, as always, me and Ash will preview our next game against Spurs. And that should be a bit of fun for everyone. So let's get straight into the Brighton game then. Matthew, I'll come to you first, as you are our guest. What are your thoughts on the game?
Absolutely diabolical. I was trying to remember other games post Moyes, trying to think if I actually seen a worse game than that. The only game that actually comes to my mind is that 4-0 loss to Chelsea, but apart from that, I don't really think there's anything that actually tops that in terms of pathetic performances. I think the scoreline does it major justice. 3-2 suggests it was a bit of a close game, but Brighton took us through cleaners, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking, obviously, I seen the reaction on Twitter, and judging when I seen the scoreline 3-2, I thought, okay, well, I mean, obviously, I was annoyed that we lost, but yeah, like you say, the scoreline suggests it was a bit of a closer game than what it actually was. I mean, I caught 5 minutes of it, like I said, and just in that 5 minutes alone, I could see why we lost the game. Because
definitely.
do what we always do, we defend very deep. Then when we get possession and we try to play the ball out from the back, Brighton were all over us. And again, I'm just talking about a little 5 minute spell that I did see at the game. Whenever we had the possession, whether it was Lindelof, whether it was Bailly, whether it was Fred, Pogba, whoever, whenever one of them got the ball, there was two or three Brighton players closing them down, and that's how you beat us. If you just put a little bit of pressure on us, we can't. That's the be all and end all of it. It was like it last season. I said it time and time again. If you want to beat us, just put us under a bit of pressure and we'll collapse. And that's exactly what I seen in that 5 minutes, and I thought that's why we lost.
Exactly. Like, you could be talking about any 5 minutes there, and I think, you know what, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
They bossed us for the entire 90.
How about yourself, Ash? What are your thoughts on the game?
Well, this could be a long one. I'm not going to go into, because literally, if I talked about every aspect that I thought was poor, we could improve, I'd be here all night. But it was very reminiscent of last season. I thought. Do you remember both of us saying that? And especially, I said on a couple of occasions that the performances that we put in last season that were decent were because most of the time our decent individual players, actually stood up, put themselves out there and performed for us. And when that didn't happen, more than likely we got beat and we played absolutely trash. But I think yesterday was a prime example of that. And was it yesterday? No, was it yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday.
It was yesterday, yeah.
And I think yesterday was a prime example. You look at our best players; they just didn't perform for us. They were terrible. I think Sanchez being out as well. I don't know if that upset the balance of the team or whatnot. I think Juan Mata, as much as I love the guy, as lovely as he is, and consummate professional and all that, he shouldn't be in the team because we're playing him out of position, and plus I don't think he suits our style of football. Pogba was ridiculous. It's one of the worst performances I've ever seen from a professional footballer, I think, yesterday, especially wearing the captain's armband. And it was just from front to back, as Matthew said. That scoreline sort of didn't do Brighton justice. They should have beat us by more than one goal. We didn't create. I think it was one shot on target in 75 minutes or something like that.
I know it's one shot on target in the second half.
That was, you know, and
that was the last kick of the game.
That's it, yeah. And the thing with me is, you know, I'm sure we'll come to it, but we shouldn't be going in half time 3-1 down to Brighton. And you know, there's been a lot of you know, people coming out and think I saw Berbatov on Instagram say, you know, it's these, you know, these sorts of games, they happen. But the thing with us at the moment is they're happening far too often. They happened so many times last season, and it's worrying because I don't think it's one thing, and I think something drastic is going to have to happen, whether that be Mourinho going or whether the board changes something. I don't know, and I think that's what it's going to take, because I think we're at that point. And people say it's only 2 games into the season. It is, and it's still early, and I really, really hope that we can turn it around. But with the way that the players are going, their attitudes, you know, Mourinho's coming to this season looking up for it. Some of the interviews he's given and his overall demeanour has been brilliant, and the players just don't seem to have bought into it so far. I could be wrong, obviously, but yeah, it's set us up for a worrying season. I hope I'm wrong, but that's the way I think it's going to go.
Yep.
So these 3 goals that were scored in the first half, I literally have not seen them. Is it? Were all 3 goals all down to poor defending? Was there any sort of element of bad luck involved? Were there any freak goals? Talk me through the goals.
Well, the penalty was made by a pretty rash decision by Bailly, which I think sums up his whole game, really.
Yeah. Oh, hang on. I think I might have seen a replay of that. Yeah, because he slid in, didn't he? And
he slid in, just didn't get the ball at all.
Pascal Gross, I think he got brought down.
Yeah.
Got his foot to the ball just before Bailly got in there, didn't he? Yeah. I think I actually seen that.
I think the first goal was quite well worked. It was a nice finish by Glenn Murray, completely caught De Gea off guard.
It was
that one as well. I did see the some highlights. No, a clip on Twitter.
Sure, you didn't see it again.
Like a little flick, wasn't it? Past De Gea. No, I did see that one as well.
But the thing
coming back to me now.
The worrying thing about that is I called that goal about 10 seconds before that, because if you watch that goal back and you look at Ashley Young's positioning, he's about half a mile out of position, and that pass is telegraphed on the left hand side, and then as soon as that ball's whipped across, Lindelof just is absolutely all at sea. He hasn't got a clue what's going on, and a 34-year-old, not the most mobile of centre forwards, Glenn Murray, just sort of ghosts past him in front, and fair play to him. It's a great finish, but you know, there's a couple of occasions they should never have got into that, but it's a decent goal. But yeah, just lackluster defending from us again.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Second goal was a little bit lucky from with the deflection, fell right to, who was it? Shane Duffy.
Yeah, it was.
Decent control, good finish, but it was a bit lucky the way it found him. But you know, they pressured us and they deserved it.
Like I said, just in that 5 minutes, the way that Brighton playing against us, the way that they were defending from the front and closing us down early, that's the way to beat us. And you know, we're getting found out, and we might find that that's going to happen a lot more this season. Are there any positives to take from this game? Did any player on that pitch shine? I've seen something on Twitter this afternoon, and I don't know if it might have actually been you, Matthew, that tweeted it or said something in the group chat. That I think it was in the group chat that Fellaini.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, what are your guys' thoughts on that? Are there any other players? Somebody must have had a good game.
Honestly, no.
But for me, there was one.
I'm guessing not. Then
there was one player who stood out above everyone for me, and which is a surprise considering the amount of shit, for want of a better word, he's taken over. That was Luke Shaw. I thought he actually, obviously, didn't set the world on fire, but you know, he was the best of a poor bunch. I thought he tried to track back well. Obviously, he got the assist for the goal. He pushed on and he looked to work hard. So he was really the only player I could say that, you know, gave an effort. You know, tried to work and tried to create something and did a job. He's the only one I can think of.
Yeah, I'd probably say the same. Really, I think Luke Shaw's the only person who. What was that? Sorry.
I said that's encouraging from Ash saying that, because we do like Luke Shaw. We know what he's capable of, and
yeah,
I want him to succeed.
Yeah, I think Luke Shaw's probably the only player who I don't want to say can hold his head high, because I don't think it was that great a performance, but it wasn't a terrible performance from him.
So how about after the game then? Did anybody catch Mourinho's post-match press conference? What was said in that?
Do you know what? I didn't. I was
Me
so
neither.
pissed off. I was so
I'm guessing
pissed
neither
off
of
with
you
the
seen it.
game. No, so pissed off with the game that I literally stayed off everywhere for a good sort of 2 or 3 hours.
That's
So
the exact same. Yep.
your time to shine, but
Well, we can look. Let's forget about Brighton because we've established that we were poor. Nobody really wants to sit here and listen to us talking about how poor we were. Let's move over to Twitter. Let's get the listeners involved now. I think.
yeah. So yeah,
Go on, Ash, do your thing.
as always, the tweet went out. Recording the podcast. What would you like us to discuss? Start from the top then. So Zach Brown, he asks, is it too early for hashtag Mourinho out? Because it seems as though he's lost the faith of the dressing room and the fans 2 games in. If and when he does leave, do we go for Zidane or do we try and convince Diego Simeone to come?
You can go first, Matthew.
In terms of if it's too early to go Mourinho out, I don't think so. Because he's been here for over 2 years now, and there's one thing that keeps sticking with me regards to this whole Mourinho out thing, and it's in his very first press conference as a United manager. He said, I'm not going to be having this sort of situation where there's going to be square pegs and round holes. And if you look at that team from yesterday against Brighton, it was probably, well, young. I mean, what even is his natural position anymore? Every position that he plays in, we're sort of thinking, yeah, but he doesn't really belong there. Mata as well on the right wing.
Yep.
Just feel like that's an absolute waste. Don't get me wrong, don't rate Mata too highly, but putting him in the right wing is pretty much useless. So I think that kind of thing does particularly annoy me because that was a huge issue under Louis van Gaal, and that was one of the first ever things that Mourinho said as a United manager. So I think that kind of sticks with me. Not to mention the absolute dire football occasionally, especially towards the sort of back end of last season. So no, I don't think it's too early to be Mourinho out. Personally, I'm more on the Mourinho outside, but I'm more than happy to be proven wrong. Like, I'd rather Mourinho succeed and we win the title and all that, rather than me just being right and the club fails.
No, fair enough. Well, you're one of many. There's a lot of the Mourinho out crowd around.
Definitely.
I do think it's still too early. Second game of the season, for Christ's sake. But look, we had David Moyes. Let's just forget he ever was at the club. But Louis van Gaal,
Yeah,
he's a good manager. You know, you look at his CV. He is a top manager. He's won things. And he's won things with big clubs as well. Mourinho, very much the same. A good manager, won big things with big clubs. What's to say that another manager is going to come in and turn everything around? It's deeper. For me, it's deeper than the manager. And a lot of people will agree with that.
yeah. No, I'd agree as well. I
Bit of
think
difference. Half
Mourinho,
of the squad you've got too old, aren't good enough. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
when you've got a team, when you've got world class players in your team, if you've only got 2 or 3, which you could argue that you've even got that many, you know, they can't play to their maximum potential if the players around them are bang average. They just can't. You know, Paul Pogba can play a fantastic ball, diagonal ball across, but the right back or the right winger's got to have the intelligence to make that run for him. Do you know what I mean? But how often do you see, like Valencia was good at that? Do you know what I mean? When Paul Pogba played these fantastic balls out to the wing, 9 times out of 10 they were to Valencia because Valencia's on the same page.
yeah,
You know, but Ash Young doesn't do that very rarely. Darmian very rarely did that. You know, you got to have the players that have the intelligence to make the runs in the space, to see a pass before it happens. For your players like Pogba, like Fred, to be able to shine. And we don't have that quality in the team to allow the best players to shine, which is why they do shine now and again, like Ash touched on earlier. When they do shine, you know, we tend to get a result. But they won't shine week in, week out if the team they've got around them are bang average. It just doesn't happen. They have their moments. That's about it. That's what I think on that. Anyway, it's far too early to say Mourinho out. You got to wait for something like that. You got to wait until very later in the season. Let's see where we are at the halfway point. If we're mid-table, then yeah, I mean he should be doing better than mid-table. As long if for me, the team we've got and the rubbish transfer window we had, when you look at the teams around us strengthening, continuing, picking up where they left off last season, we're going to be in a struggle for top four this season. That's my prediction. That's how I feel about it. So if we're in and amongst that top four by Christmas, then I think Mourinho is doing the best he can and getting the best out of what he's got. If we're below that, around mid-table, then yeah, I might be thinking, hang on a minute, this is really bad because even with what we do have. But at the moment, over to you, Ash.
Yeah. Now, I've been Mourinho in since the start, and I'm still not advocating him getting sacked. I'm not. I really want to see him succeed because I like him. I like, most of what he represents. Obviously, the football can be, frustrating at times. But the thing for me is, obviously, he's not going to go now. There's no chance 2 games into the season. The only thing that really concerns me is what can we change? What do we need to change to to succeed, to get better, to progress? And as you've touched upon, Paul, and as we've said for the past 2 years, or maybe even longer, there's too many people and there's too many players in this squad that are average or very poor. But that is not going to change in the next 6 or 12 months. It's just not. Whether that's the board's fault, Woodward's fault, whoever's fault that is, it's not going to change. The only change that I can see happening is Mourinho leaving. Because obviously player power is massive nowadays. You've got, especially with big characters like Pogba and Sanchez and all these players, the power is with them really, with clubs. And as much as I don't want to see it happen, I think we are slowly creeping towards him leaving. Whether that's around Christmas or whether that's at the end of the season, I definitely think he'll go end of the season regardless of what happens. I really do. Just not because of him and everything that that he puts up with. I just think that the media, everything. I mean, I just have to listen to the commentary after that Brighton game and look at the media. The media were all over it. They absolutely loved it. And as I think as thick-skinned as Mourinho has been, and he is, and with his comments, I think the pressure will only mount on him. And I'm not being that. I wouldn't want it. I wouldn't want that pressure and that constant criticism that he receives. The press don't like Manchester United as it is, and they hate Jose Mourinho. So you put the two together, and it's an absolute shitstorm for the media. It really is. They're just all over everything. So I don't think he'll be here next season. I really don't. I'm just hoping we can put something together. We can get something out of the season, whether that's Champions League football or a cup or whatever it is. I really want him to succeed, but in my personal opinion, I think he'd be gone by Christmas. And again, 2 games in, but I just think with the players' heads, they don't seem to be in the right place. As I said, Mourinho looks to be up for it this season, but he just doesn't seem to have the players to want to do it. Not ability-wise, because I'm not being funny. That team that we put out yesterday should have battered Brighton. With the players that with the players we had on the pitch, with the likes of Martial, Mata, Lukaku behind them, then we had Pogba and Fred. Obviously Fred's still settling in, and then Bailly has been so dependent. Well, he's been such quality over the many games, but he's got those occasional games in him. And for all those people saying that we should have signed a centre back, that our lack of a centre back yesterday didn't cause us not to have a shot on target for 75 minutes. That wasn't the issue, and the issue has been that we've not created chances, we've not scored goals, we've been too lethargic, we're not progressing the play, and this is our problem. And as much as I want to say it doesn't stem from the manager, where else are we going to rectify that issue? That's the big worry for me. I don't think we're going to do anything else to rectify that, whether that be a director of football or they're talking about some stupid advisor or whatever. I think that it's gonna end with Mourinho going. Unfortunately, I really hope I'm proved wrong. I really hope he batters everyone and wins the league, but I just can't see it happening.
I think if he was to go, it wouldn't be because of the media. He's dealt with the media his whole career.
Yeah,
I think if he was to go, it'd be because he's unhappy with the way that it'll be because he doesn't feel like he's being supported fully by the board. I think that would be why he went, and I think that's the reason Real Madrid is because of run-ins with the board and the president. That's at least that's what I read anyway. But I think that'll be the reason why he was to leave, if he did leave. I hope he doesn't. I don't think he will, to be honest. I still think that the Brighton game was just it was rubbish. It was poor. We know that, but we bounced back. Next week's a new game. All it'll take is to get a result against Spurs, and the tide's going to turn again. People are going to be happy again, and people will be buoyant. The players will be in a better mood. If we can get a result against Spurs, this whole conversation gets forgotten, and we're having a completely different conversation next week. That's what I mean. It's football. It's far too early to be Mourinho out.
Should we move on?
Yeah.
Okay, so next on the list, we've got John Chambers. He says, with all the talk of tactics and attitude, do you guys think the problem is that we've just got bang average players, especially in defence?
Well, we just pretty much touched on that, didn't we, a little bit? Or I did, at least, anyway.
Yeah.
And I think, yes, John, the answer to that is yes. We've got a lot of bang average players, not just ability-wise, but in terms of, having the vision and a football brain, so to speak. The intelligence just isn't there for a lot of the players. It's not their fault, obviously, but I think that, like I said, to get the best out of our best players, we need to have good players around them. There just aren't that many of them.
Yeah. Great. Next, we've got Ike Yeguala. He says, defence is awful, but creating just 6 chances throughout the game is abysmal. Why can't United create chances? He also adds, it's better to make the mistakes now than later in the season when it counts. Surely we can't play much worse than this, or can we, as a challenge?
You want to go first on this one then, Matthew?
Yeah, sure. I'll just cover the previous question. I think most of that really is down to the style of play in terms of not creating enough chances. And whether that's down to the individual players or Marino's tactics, that's probably up for debate, but I'd say it's probably a bit of both. Decision making as well from a lot of players is absolutely horrendous at times, particularly Pogba. You saw in that last match, some of the stupid little passes that he was trying when there's no one actually making any runs. You just think, what are you actually doing? Especially when he gets the ball, probably just ahead of his own box, and then tries to do stupid little skill moves around 3 Brighton players and then ends up with a free kick.
Yeah.
That was a particular thing that happened, I think, 30 minutes into the game. So I think it's just due to style of play and individual performances, really, that we're not creating enough chances.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there with it being a bit of both.
Yeah.
One thing about the way we set up as a team that frustrates the living hell out of me is how when we defend with 11 men behind the ball and we do it so deep. We pressed higher and we defend from the front. Like we see so many teams doing across the Premier League, what more and more teams are now doing to us because they know that it hurts us. We see it now and again, but not often enough. And I think that's the big problem, because when we do defend deep like that, it's effective. Don't get me wrong, because our defensive record in the 2 seasons has been very, very good.
Yep.
In terms of goals conceded and clean sheets and things like that. But it's when we pick up possession in that area, everyone's too deep, and then we can't get forward. Because we've got everyone behind the ball. We're passing around our own area, waiting for players to become available. No one's making any runs. No one's got the intelligence to make a run. So many times, there's so much space in the middle where you've got Lukaku on the last defender. You've got your wingers who are still far too deep, and no one in the middle. No one in that little 10 spot to pick up the ball to sort of make that connection between defence and attack. The players are there to do it. You've got 3 midfielders on the pitch. One of them should make a run forward, but they just don't. And we end up just knocking the ball around side to side and then losing it. So there's that part of the game. But again, if we had better players who can think quicker, who can spot a run, players who can think to make a run, then that issue doesn't exist anymore. Because that defence into attack, that 11 men behind the ball into attack tactic then becomes effective because you've got players who can play that system. At the moment, we just don't have that. So I agree with you. It is a bit of both.
The other thing that frustrates me the most is you look at our squad, and as I've mentioned, God knows how many times, we've not got one natural winger in that first team squad. So we play very narrow. And usually when we play narrow, that sort of, it really advocates sort of more tight-knit passing play, a little intricate passing. And then I think the most important role in a system like that is your number 10. If you're playing narrow, you're running narrow lines for the likes of Lukaku. Mata's always cutting inside. Martial or Sanchez will usually cut in as well. You need a number 10 who is going to play little intricate passes, interchange with the forwards. And the most frustrating thing is we don't have any wingers, but you look at the likes of players we've got. Jesse Lingard probably prefers playing in a 10. Juan Mata prefers playing in a 10. Sanchez can play in a 10. Pogba can play as 10. Andreas Pereira, started out as a 10. We've got all these players, and we do not play with an attacking midfielder. We play with a holding midfielder and two central midfielders. That is how we play football.
Because everybody wanted a 4-3-3.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's all well and good having a 4-3-3, but it's how do you set up? There is different variations of a 4-3-3. You play with two holding and an attacking, but we'd rather play with a defensive midfielder and two holding. So it's frustrating, and I really think we should start transitioning to a 5 at the back or a 3 at the back. I'm sure we'll come to that later on, because we need, with the narrowness of our play, because we haven't got any wingers, we need a number 10 to feed our forwards. We need that person in the pocket between the lines, whether it's we decide to play Juan Mata there or we play Pogba, whoever. We need that person in there supplying our forwards, because that has been our issue. As much as you say, our defense is shit, we haven't got this, we needed a centre back, blah, 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 blah. We are not scoring enough goals to beat these lesser teams. And we are not putting enough pressure. When we get the ball, we look useless with it. We look clueless. We don't know what we're doing. We need someone to control that play, like your Christian Eriksen's, like your David Silva's. I mean, I didn't see much of the City game. I only caught very, very glimpses of it. But you look at David Silva's performance for City. Absolutely bossed it. Between the lines, that's the type of player you want there. And we don't have it. We've got the players, but we don't play with a player in that position. And I think that's a big, big issue for us. I really think that our lack of width forces us to play in this certain way, and we don't cater to it. And that's been the case for the past, 4 years maybe? We've not catered to a system that suits the players that we've got. If you want to change to a system, fine. But, get rid of players and bring the ones you want in. But obviously, you've got Jose Mourinho fighting against a board that doesn't want to bring in players. Allegedly, we don't know. But that's the biggest bugbear, I think, for me.
No, I would agree.
I'm going to stop waffling. I would be on here for ages. We'll be on here till tomorrow morning. Next, David Makins, he says, guys, I've got a two-part question, if you don't mind. Should we wait for Jose to ruin Man United like he did Chelsea when he left? Or should Man United learn from the Madrid and Chelsea exit and get rid of him now? And he says, is Zidane the right answer? Either way, I believe Jose will leave. I wish he did better.
After you, Matthew.
In terms of is Jose ruining United, probably all down to expectation, what your opinions of him are. I wouldn't say, I'm not too sure if I'd say he's ruining United, because that would suggest it's just the one man behind it. I'd probably say, like I said before, it's a mix of the board and Mourinho that aren't really helping the situation. But I'd say in terms of if he was to go, during the season or whatever, in terms of like a new manager, I mean, we can all dream. And personally, my dream sort of manager is Zidane. But I can't see it happening, honestly. I think once Ronaldo signed for Juventus, I think it was at that point I thought, yeah, Zidane's definitely going to go to Juventus. They've got some kind of agreement in there. But there's also that Monaco manager who has been talked about a few times. He could be good, but then again, that all depends if Mourinho, absolutely bombs it this season and was to leave it December or something. But there's so many shades of Mourinho's last season at Chelsea that just kind of stick with me, particularly through the pre-season. I noticed that there's that kind of unrest. There's rumours of him, losing the dressing room, all that kind of stuff. So it was actually refreshing to see him have that, or kind of adopt that siege mentality in the first couple of press conferences. But I'm not sure if that's going to be a thing that's going to last, or if he's going to go back to his normal self.
Yeah, I don't think it's a case of him having that third season syndrome or whatever you want to call it. I don't think for a second that he's lost the players. I mean, the media can say things like that, which they will. But then it's like I said last week, a week before, a week later, or less than that, a couple of days later, there's pictures of him laughing and joking with the players and the training pitch. Do you know what I mean? There's no, I don't think there's any, um, putting downing of tools from the players in that respect. I don't think there's anything like that. I think he has a good relationship with the players. I think the players are happy. I don't think he's ruining Man United. I mean, look, we've been like this since Fergie left. In fact, since Mourinho's been here, he's actually done better than Van Gaal. He's actually done better than Moyes. He's been the best of the three. And even with him having the best spell as a manager out of those three, the football has still been pretty poor across the board. But it has been, like I said, since Fergie left. I don't think Mourinho is ruining the club. It runs deeper. All we can do is speculate about what the problem is. Is it the board? Is it Ed Woodward? Is it Mourinho? We just don't know. I mean, yes, the football could be better, but when you haven't got special players on the pitch, you can't expect the football to be better. Yeah, I mean, Jose Mourinho can say, right, get out there and just go for it. Then what if we lose 4-0? You know what I mean? We can go for it and risk losing 4-0, or we can be very cautious, defend in numbers, and get a 1-0 or a 2-1 win and get 3 points on the board. Jose probably feels like he has to do that because of the players that he's got. Which is why I kept saying last season, if he's backed in the transfer window and he can bring in the players that he wants, suit the way he wants to play, we'll probably see a much better United. But unfortunately, that hasn't happened over the summer. He hasn't been back for whatever reason. You can believe what the media say, although they do contradict themselves quite a lot. But yeah, that's basically what I think on that. I mean, what are your thoughts, Ash?
Yeah, I don't want to say that he's ruining United because, as you mentioned, we've had two managers in before Jose that have done more damage. I think you look at Van Gaal, and a certain amount of blame could be placed on Sir Alex Ferguson as well for leaving the squad in such a state that he did. We know that Fergie would probably walk the league with this squad, but that's just the type of person he was, and he'd had the players running through brick walls for him, and it doesn't matter if he had Zidane in midfield or Tom Cleverley. They were going to give everything for you, and they were going to work their socks off, and that's not the case. I really want to say it's not the case nowadays in football, but you've got some managers who can instill that mentality. You look at Diego Simeone is one of them, but I think that this squad, I don't know what it is with this squad. Obviously, you've got to place a certain amount of blame on the manager. Of course, that's natural, but we just haven't recruited correctly. I don't think we've spent God knows how much money. And you look at we question the board, and I really can't wait for the Glazers to leave if they ever do leave. I don't know because they just don't get football. But to say that he hasn't been backed, he has been backed. He's been given how many 100 million or whatever. But the differences between Mourinho and the likes of Pep maybe is, I think the board have a lot less trust in Mourinho than what other boards do with their managers for some reason. I don't know why. Because you look at the likes of...
If you can't trust Mourinho with the money, who do you trust?
Yeah, exactly.
Look at Mourinho at Chelsea. He was given loads of money, and he won 2 leagues in a row.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He had Real Madrid. They spent money like it grows on trees.
Yeah.
And he was able to do it. Look what he did with that. He got in the right players, and he did have a good time at Madrid. He won the league with Madrid. But this is what I mean. If they're not going to back Mourinho, who are they going to back?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, again, you look at likes of. I think obviously it's a long-term project, and I don't know if the board see that because, again, don't want to talk about City too much, but Pep comes in, he's got Joe Hart, gives him a chance, doesn't like him, buys Bravo, gives him a little bit of time, doesn't like him, buys Edison, and with Mourinho now, he brought in Bailly and Lindelof, very inconsistent, both of them. He's brought in Pogba, not got the best out of him. He's brought in Sanchez. Okay, he's only had 6 months, not got the best out of him. You look at his other signings. Okay, some of his signings have been okay, but you look at other signings. Ibrahimovic, gone. Mkhitaryan, gone. And it's... I'm not siding with the board, but I can understand why some people are saying, well, if he's spent all that money and how many of the signings that he's made are really sort of performing week in, week out for us. Okay, you could argue Lukaku has come in and done well. There's not many others.
Can I jump in there because
Yeah.
last season we did at some point last season we did sort of weigh up Mourinho signings, and we sort of come to the conclusion that overall they were positive.
Yeah.
Because we were looking at Bailly and Lindelof, and we were saying, look, Bailly spent a lot of time on the sidelines with injuries, which is true. So he's not really had a proper, long, consistent run as a centre back. Lindelof didn't really feature much last season. Do you know what I mean? So he's not really, and those two as a partnership haven't really had a chance, or they haven't at all had a chance to form any sort of chemistry or a bond. So in terms of those two, you can't really say, inconsistent, because they haven't really played together. So I think for those two, you still have to give them the benefit of the doubt. Pogba, okay, you could argue that's been, questionable. Ibrahimovic was only ever going to be for one season anyway, which he was absolutely fantastic. And then Mkhitaryan, that's a definite flop. But in terms of others like Bailly and Lindelof, I think it's a bit unfair to comment on them at the moment, because there's been times when we said they're absolutely brilliant, and times when they said that they haven't been. But neither of them really have been a consistent centre back in the centre back position, because Smalling and Jones played a lot last year as well.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I am. Obviously, us as football fans who watch the team week in, week out can see, those positives and can see the progression, and they need time. But from a board perspective, and as we go back to them not understanding football at all, whether this begs the question for a director of football or an in between person, whatever, all they're going to see is, obviously in the media they make everything 10 times worse as well. But they're going to see, week in, week out, so-and-so is not performing, so-and-so, Mourinho spent so-and-so money on this person and they're not performing. So from a board point of view, where they just don't get it, essentially, to them, they're throwing money down the drain, which obviously, as fans, we know that isn't the case. But I'm just thinking from a board perspective, is that why that he's not being backed? Is the reason that Mourinho is, looking to have a meltdown or whatever they want to call it, and that, giving him extra money would be detrimental to their business as they see it? I don't know, but I'm just thinking from a board point of view, that could be that, their thoughts on how they're thinking. I don't know.
Well, that's that. The next one then. Matthew, have you had your say on that one? I think you did, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
See, he's still here. Sorry. It's gonna. Okay, Robin Kedston. The Aga bit is over for me. Season feels finished 2 games in. Feels so faithless. It's a big ask, but can we bring something up that can give hope? Can we be hopeful, boys? Anything?
Go on, Matthew, you go first. It seems like forever since you spoke.
Yeah.
Guess at least Matt will say something nice in his blog.
Yeah.
Apart from that, not really, no. At least he'll reassure us.
Yeah. Hugs.
There's people sort of praising Pogba for his attitudes in that post-match interview, but you don't win games talking to reporters. You win games by actually playing well on the football pitch. To be honest, I couldn't care less what Pogba said after that. There was the only reason why people were focusing so much on that was because he played so bad and he wanted his reaction out of it. So in terms of positives, there's probably very little, but like you said earlier on, if we get a win next week, then most of the sort of negativity from this game will probably go down the drain now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that will be the case, wouldn't it? But no, Robin, I totally get how you're feeling. There will be a lot of people that are just feeling so dejected and pessimistic, and they probably feel the same as you, that the season is finished already 2 games in, because it's understandable for people to feel like that. I mean, look at the manner. Well, the 5 minutes that I seen, but listening to what these two are saying, it was quite diabolical. And just the tone, you can tell just by the tone of our voices, we all sound really miserable tonight.
Very much.
But can we bring something up that's going to give hope? Look at the team. There is some talent in there. Look at where we finished last season. Yeah, okay, last season we got off to a flying start, and then it sort of fizzled out. But there's been plenty of seasons where we've had a slow start, but then we picked up and we finished strong. That can happen. That can happen, and it's only the second game. It's a bad loss. We're gonna have a few more of these, I'm sure, as the season progresses. I'm very sure of it. But I think the positives eventually will outweigh the negatives, and I'm hopeful of that.
Yeah, I think so. I think some more positives to take from it. Certain players. I mean, Luke Shaw seems to be getting back to his best. Putting a couple of decent performances now. Got his first goal. He was, as I said, probably the only player that showed any sort of desire in the last game. You got obviously Andreas Pereira. Hopefully, he gets some more game time. Gives us another option, gives us a little bit more dynamism in the midfield. Fred obviously still needs to settle in. He could become, a decent player for us. It's not all doom and gloom. Obviously, hopefully some youngsters get some minutes, whether it be in the cup as well, and start sort of transitioning them to the first team. So, yes, it's not all doom and gloom. I'm sure we'll have some decent times this season.
Excellent.
Next, Fionn Curtin, how to set up v Spurs. We'll get into that. Thanks very much. At Rome's MUFC, this is going to be a long, hard season. Do you think Jose will be here by Christmas?
Yes.
Okay.
Probably not.
Contrasting.
I'm sort of in that in between section, really.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. As much as I'd like him to be in and succeed, I don't know. I've just got a feeling.
Yeah.
And then finally, Chris Salazar. He says, let's discuss on how it's physically possible to be this disappointing after Fergie. We don't even remotely look like anything that resembles the club he left. It's an absolute disgrace.
Matthew.
One thing that I've noticed, right, every season post Fergie has been that kind of season where, just say we were under Fergie's management, it was one of those seasons where you can think, okay, it wasn't the best, but we'll move on. There's some positives to take from that. Every single season has been that kind of season. And we sort of, in some respects, stagnated. You can argue that there's some kind of progress. However, it could just be a case of Mourinho being, the least bad manager. Just think, because we had so much success under Ferguson, like 26 years of just winning absolutely everything that we had a chance to win in, I think our standards and that bar has been set so incredibly high that anything but winning leagues over and over again is deemed sort of unacceptable. Now, whether that's the right thing to think or not is up for debate, but that just seems to be how it is right now.
No, yeah. I mean, let's have a look. Fergie's last season, for those that remember, the football was pretty poor. It wasn't great.
Yeah.
There was a lot of frustration during that season. I remember it very, very well. But we got results, and that was the important thing. And we won the league. Thanks to Robin van Persie. If we didn't have him, we wouldn't have been in the top four. No. That's the bottom line. And again, we haven't had a striker like that since then. Really, have we? Let's be honest. But discuss on how it's physically possible to be this disappointing after Fergie. Well, it's it's a hard one, really, isn't it? I mean, when you think of how far we've fallen from that, it's quite astonishing. But I think I think Matthew may have said, or might have been you, Ash, that said it, that the squad that Fergie left wasn't. I mean, yes, it was a title-winning squad, but I don't think he would have won the title again with that team the following season.
No,
because
definitely.
Other teams strengthened, and the team that he left, let's be honest, was aging. I mean, Vidic, Rio, Patrice Evra, I mean, they all moved on. They were all getting on a bit. You know what I mean? And Rooney wasn't getting any younger. He was on a slippery slope. The team was going downhill, and I think that is where it all stems from, is the fact that as soon as Fergie left, he was clever about that. He knew that after that league win, another rebuild was due, but he didn't have those years in him. He knew that obviously the thing that happened in his private life, which instigated the retirement. But I think the retirement was coming anyway, so I don't think he would have had it in him, the years left in him, to be able to make that rebuild again. And I think that's where the problem is that we've not been able to rebuild properly, fully yet. And that, I think that's not because of the players that are coming in, but the players that we can't seem to get rid of.
Yeah.
and it's baffling, isn't it? Because you look at players like Smalling, Jones, Young, Valencia, the whole back four, which is just either A, not good enough, or B, too old. You know, you got Fellaini, other midfield. Well, midfield is very light now, isn't it? But you know, so many players in that team that we consider deadwood. You know, Darmian's another one that we just can't seem to get rid of. Well, we got rid of Blind.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one player that we didn't have a problem selling, and it doesn't surprise me because I liked Blind. I thought he was a good footballer at times, so it's not a surprise that someone snapped him up. But it does surprise me a little bit that the rest of them haven't been sold. I mean, surely there must have been teams interested. I mean, were United just reluctant? The board were just reluctant to sell them? Or the board reluctant to get rid of our deadwood? Is that part of the problem as well? Do you know what I mean? So I think the reason we're this disappointing is because we've not been able to properly refresh the squad. I mean, it is happening slowly but surely. I mean, you look at some of the players, look at the team now. You know, there are a lot of players that weren't here before Fergie, but there's also a lot of players that are still here from Fergie's era, which we haven't been able to replace. And a lot of them played a lot of minutes over the last few seasons, and I think that's part of the issue as well. I mean, just think if Mourinho was given was fully backed in this summer window, we might have had another 2 or 3 players come in.
Yeah,
you know, another centre back, which may have enabled us to play 3 at the back or 5 at the back or whatever you want to call it. There may have been another midfielder in there. There may have been an attacker, a winger. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure all these positions were prioritised by Mourinho, but the board didn't want to bring them in.
Yeah.
Over to you, Ash.
Yeah, as I said, coming to the deadwoods and what you mentioned, Paul. I think it is a problem, and I don't think it's a reluctance of the board to sell them, because I think the board would be happy to sell anyone because they don't really care. Selling players obviously means money in their pockets. I think it's obviously Mourinho at the moment. I think his reliance on players that aren't good enough can be frustrating for fans. But I think, and Matthew, you mentioned this in the group chat before, you know, when Fellaini come on against Brighton, he looked like our best midfielder.
Yeah,
he controlled the ball. He was looking to push up, and he played. You know, he was all right, and he was a decent addition. And I've said that from day one. I said I don't mind having Fellaini in the squad as a backup option. You know, providing we don't give him consistent minutes in the first 11. But I think that's the reason that Mourinho likes these players like Darmian, like Fellaini. You know, he's publicly praise these players, in the media. And I think because you look at that performance against Brighton, you look at the likes of Pogba, you look at the likes of Martial and Rashford, they're poor. And not just their performances were poor, their mentality looked poor. And I think Fellaini comes on and he's positive and he's looking to try and do things. And I've said this for a while. I think the reason that Mourinho likes Darmian's, your Fellaini, is because they give everything for the manager. And for the team. I mean, you have to look at that Pogba performance. He's wearing the captain's armband for Manchester United, and he just looked like he couldn't be asked. He looked like he was down the park, and he just couldn't give a toss. And I think that's the reason why, Mourinho is taking to these players. But at the end of the day, they're not good enough for Manchester United, and that's not going to win you titles. Playing players like that week in, week out. So it's a bit of a damned if you do, damned if you don't, I think, from Mourinho. He needs players that he can trust in, but he hasn't got those players that are of a high enough quality, I don't think, to do him any favours. So yeah, it's frustrating, and it's going to be an interesting one. I really don't know. It's going to be turbulent. It's going to be fireworks, whatever happens. It's just let's get some positives out of it.
Excellent stuff. Well, I think that's the end of the Twitter section, I think, isn't it? Or was there more on there?
Yeah, nope, that's it.
Excellent. Okay, well, Matthew, this is the part of the show where we say au revoir. Me and Ash will go ahead and do our preview for the Spurs game. But thank you for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed it.
No worries. You did, definitely.
Excellent. Would you like to give the listeners your Twitter details?
Sure. That's why I came on here, for that plug. No, the Twitter is @_Matthew. So
Go on, say that
So
again. Sorry, I should
it's
maybe.
@_Maffo, so Maffo. And also, double plug here, I'm going to be setting up an Etsy store in the next month or so where I sell all my graphics and stuff. So if you're interested, have a look at that. But that'll be something for the future.
Yes, definitely check that out. The graphics are good. I like your new poster series you're doing. I do like the look of those. Very, very
Thank you
smart.
much.
But yeah, excellent. Thank you for joining us. And yeah, just
No worries.
literally drop out of the call and we'll catch you very soon. Thank
All
you
right, no
again.
problem. See ya.
Cheers, bud.
Take care. Right then, Ash. Let's do our thing. Let's do this preview.
Yeah, so
Spurs.
over to the weekend, yes, Spurs. It's going to be a mixed one, I think. And obviously, United have had so much press, and they're looking to this game as the turning point, and for us to answer back. And a lot of the press and the media are saying, it's probably one of the worst games we could have taken, really, after that Brighton game. But I see it as a positive. You only have to look at the performance last season, where everyone wrote us off against Spurs, and we snatched a 1-0 win. And I can see it being something similar. I'm hopefully thinking that the players, obviously Mourinho doesn't, he's Mourinho, he's going to want to win whatever happens. But I think the players maybe should take it upon themselves. Pogba's turned around and said that Manchester United are mad at the moment, which is, it's an emotion. It'd be great to have seen a little bit of emotion yesterday, but I'm hoping we approach this game with a different mindset than the last one. So, I mean, for the listeners, I'm sure they know, a pretty decent amount about Spurs. Their last couple of games, their first game of the season, they won 2-1 at Newcastle. And then at the weekend, they won 3-1 at Fulham. I think that Fulham performance was a little bit shaky, if I remember correctly. It was 1-1 for a while. And I think they had two quick goals, like 75 or 77 minutes, 2 goals in quick succession, which won them the game. I think that the scoreline maybe was a little bit flattering. I'm not too sure, though. That's what I heard. So, they've started the season well. 2 wins. We know what Spurs are capable of. An interesting fact was, they didn't sign any players or sell any players during the summer, which was a little bit odd considering how they finished last season. Everyone talks about the mighty Spurs and how amazing they are, but let's not forget that they finished below the terrible Manchester United that we were last season. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. How do you see us approaching the game?
Well, I think Mourinho is going to definitely have some stern words with the players after that Brighton result. The players are going to want to bounce back as well because they want it, because there's a lot of players in that team that want to prove themselves. So I do think we'll see a reaction. I think we're going to see an improved performance. Maybe this is just me being, ever the optimist. Well, sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. But I do think we'll see a reaction from United. I think we'll approach this game with a bit more desire, a bit more belief, and I think it will be a good game.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. Like you said, I'm really hoping for a reaction. Some of our forwards actually, take the onus upon themselves and try something. It'd be interesting to see, how we set up. But looking to Spurs first, obviously we always log down our danger men. I'm assuming this is going to be pretty similar between the two of us. So my 5 names I've got as usual is obviously Harry Kane, Dele Alli, Christian Eriksen, Moussa Dembele, and I've also, as a 5th one, I've put down Lucas Moura because he bagged a goal in the last game, and he seems to be a sort of a mainstay in that team at the moment. Who have you got?
Pretty much the same. Kane, Ali, Moura, Eriksen. But I've also got Kieran Trippier.
All right, okay, yeah.
Not just because of how good he was for England, but because of how good he is for Spurs. Against Fulham, he was very active down that right-hand side and caused them all sorts of problems. He is a very talented right back, and when you're up against Ashley Young, if he's up against Ashley Young, I don't think he'll have too much of a problem. But Luke Shaw's been holding down that position the last couple of games.
Yeah.
And it'll be a very, very good test for Luke Shaw to come up against Kieran Trippier, especially so early in the season. And also because Luke Shaw wants to prove himself. Kieran Trippier would be a good start, so early this season. So yeah, Trippier, Eriksen, Moura, Ali, Kane. I think they're all danger men. But like you said as well, Dembele, we know what he's capable of. He can dominate a midfield on his own. He can drift past players. He can, muscle players off. He can pick out a good pass. He can do all these things because he's got the players around him with the intelligence to make runs for him, like your Trippiers and your I don't know who plays on the other wing, but Davies, isn't it? Ben Davies.
Yeah, Ben Davies. Yeah.
Plays on the left, and he's a good left back. You know, he gets forward, he can put a good ball in. So hopefully we won't see too much from those players, but those are the players that we need to look out for and need to be wary of. But everyone knew that anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Most, people dangerous Spurs are, and you see him enough on Match of the Day or whatever. So before we go into the predictor, how did you get on last week in your predictor against Brighton yesterday? It is 1-1, I think. Is it 1-1 for the season?
Ooh, 2 seconds. Have you got the?
I've got the lineup if you need it. I haven't got your 11 though. That's the only thing. But I've got the lineup
here. So I've got De Gea in goal.
Yeah.
I had Darmian, Bailly, Lindelof, and Shaw.
Yeah.
There was one out there, wasn't I? I think because Young played on the right, didn't he?
That's it. Yeah.
Fred, Pereira, and Pogba in the midfield.
Yeah.
Mata, Lukaku, and Sanchez. And I know Sanchez didn't play.
So, yeah, and that's the only. So we both had 8 out of 11. So it's a draw.
Fair enough. So 2-1 to you then.
Is it 2-1? No, is it 2 or is it? I can't remember.
You won the first week.
I did.
1-0. We'll have a point each since we both got it right. Both got 8. Or we can just go no points and keep it 1-0.
No, we want to accumulate points. It looks better.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, so how have you got us lining up against Spurs?
Well, I think I want to see some consistency. I want players to develop a partnership. Get used to playing with each other. So I want the back two with Bailly and Lindelof to remain the two centre backs. I want them to form, a bond, a relationship. That will never happen if they keep getting chopped and changed. They were fantastic against Leicester, absolutely fantastic. Yeah, they were poor against Brighton, but don't write them off. Don't start mixing them around. Keep them together because we've seen what they're capable of, especially Bailly. He's a monster. Yeah. Keep Luke Shaw at left back because I don't want to see Ashley Young out there. Luke Shaw, going by what you say, he was one of the shining lights of the Brighton game, although he didn't set the world alight, like you said. So keep Shaw there. I want to see the midfield, Fred, Pereira, and Pogba. I want to see that kept the same. You know what I mean? Because Fred's a new signing. He needs he needs games and minutes to settle in. Once he settles in, he'll become a better player. Pereira the same. He's only just back with the Man United squad. He's not played that much for Man United at all, so he needs a period of time to settle in and get used to the Premier League as well. He's in the same boat. And we all know about Pogba. Once Fred and Pereira, cement their places and get settled, you'll probably see an improved Pogba come out of that. So I want to see the midfield stay the same. I want to see the defense stay the same. And then the front three, I want to see Sanchez back in there. I want to see Lukaku up top. And the right-hand side, I'm going to say Mata. In that 5 minutes that I saw of the Brighton game, I did see Lingard have a couple of touches of the ball, and he did nothing with it other than run 5 yards and lose it. You know what I mean? So, so this is my team for Spurs: De Gea in goal.
Yeah.
Darmian, Bailly, Lindelof, and Shaw. Yeah. Obviously, if Diego Dallo was fit, I'd say chuck him in.
Yeah, why not?
But he's not. Or if Valencia was fit, I'd say chuck him in, but he's not. So Darmian, Bailly, Lindelof, Shaw, Fred, Pereira, Pogba, Mata, Lukaku, Sanchez. So I'm going to go exactly the same team that I predicted against Brighton.
Okay. Interesting. I've mixed it up because I wasn't sure what you were going to do, and I just thought I've gone completely a different direction, and I've gone more what I think we should play rather than trying to predict, which is an odd one, but I think he might change. I've gone for a 5 at the back or a 3 at the back, and however you want to look at it. Right. Because I think against Spurs, obviously a lot more dangerous than Leicester and Brighton. I think we're going to want to shore things up at the back. Pun possibly intended for Luke Shaw. But I'm not sure. I've gone with, obviously, De Gea in goal. I've gone with Ashley Young at right back because I'm not sure what the situation with Darmian is, and Young having started there at the weekend. Then I've gone with a back 3 of Bailly and Lindelof again because, as you said, I want to see him, get consistent minutes. But I've also chucked Chris Smalling in there as well. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know the fitness. I don't know what it is with Smalling, if he's not started or what it is. But I've put him in there as well for a bit of height. Obviously, he's played against Spurs before and done all right. And then kept Luke Shaw at left back. So that's sort of a 5-man defence. Now, this is where it gets tricky for me. I'll tell you my two. I've put 2 up top with Lukaku and Sanchez.
Right.
That's my 2 up top. And then for the midfield, I've gone Pogba. I'm toying with the idea of Matic because I don't know how fit he is, if he's ready or not. But sod it, I'm going to go Pogba, Fred, and Pereira. I'm going to do the same midfield 3, but with Lukaku and Sanchez ahead of them. That's what I've gone for. A bit more stability, a bit more protection, than 2 up top to work off each other.
A plausible prediction, I would say. I would say it wouldn't surprise me to see Mourinho change up the defence after the Brighton game. As long as Bailly and Lindelof stay in there and Shaw stay in there, then I'll be happy.
Yeah,
because those players need to play.
Yeah, I agree. So prediction, go on in.
I'm going 1-1.
Okay.
I'm hoping for a win. We really need. Well, we don't need to win that game in terms of points and league position because it's still really very early.
Yeah.
But you don't want to be going 9 points behind the top 4. 6 points behind the top 4. After 3 games. So in a way, it sort of is. We kind of need to win this one, but it's not a must win. But for team morale and that sort of thing, it kind of we kind of need to win really. But yeah, I'm not overly confident purely because it's Spurs, and yeah, I'm going to go 1-1.
I'm going 1-0. I don't know what it is.
To them.
No, to us. I'm going 1-0 to us.
Good.
I don't know what it is. I'm expecting and I'm hoping for a reaction. I'm hoping Spurs will have seen that performance and be a little bit too confident. Probably won't happen, obviously, but I'm just hoping that the players can get a reaction and silence some doubters. So I've gone 1-0. Might not happen, but hey, we can remain hopeful.
Excellent. Well, I think that wraps it up then, doesn't it?
It does indeed. Yeah, that is the lot.
Excellent. Well, everyone, thank you for listening. If you've listened this far, I'll be very, very surprised. It's been quite a downbeat week, to say the least, especially after I predicted a 3-0 win against Brighton. Yeah. That sort of didn't pan out the way we hoped it would. But thank you all for listening. As usual, you can follow us on Twitter. You can follow myself at Paul Gardner LP. Our podcast Twitter account is at United Stand Pod. Ash, you want to give out your details?
Yeah, it's at Ashboio, ASHBOIO.
Excellent. Yeah, we're going to be, as you all know, we are on YouTube as well. So give us a like and a subscribe and comment as well. Whilst you're on there, check out VanCam, Kev Ashford. I'm sure you don't need me to go into detail on that like I do every week normally, but it's a good laugh. So go there to his channel as well. I think that'll be he'll definitely put a smile on the face. Yeah, but that's it then for us this week. We'll be back next. We'll be playing on Monday night, aren't we?
We are.
So the podcast may have to move to Tuesday or Wednesday. I'll have to see what I'm doing on those days, and also Ash as well, whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll be back next week, and fingers crossed. Hope to God that there's some more positivity heading our way. But thank you all for listening, and we'll speak then. Ta-da.